Hey, this is Todd from One Shot API, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to enable refunds in your x402 resources that you are building in N8N using the One Shot API x402 webhook gateway. And for facilitating refunds, we're going to be using the x402 refunds service. This is a really nice and easy to use dispute resolution platform that makes it easy for buyers of x402 resources to submit disputes, and it automatically routes those disputes to the owners of x402 resources, and it gives a really nice email-based approach for people that are running x402 resources to approve or deny refunds coming from their buyers. So we're going to see that in action in a minute. Before we get into N8N and start setting up workflows, first we're going to need a One Shot API account. So come to oneshotapi.com, log in or create a free account if you don't have one already. First thing, let's come to the wallets tab. We're going to need a base network server wallet. So click create a new wallet, give it a name and a description. Click on blockchain, scroll down and select the base network and hit confirm. That'll provision you a brand new wallet. You will need to deposit a little bit of base ETH into this server wallet to facilitate the payments that we're going to be doing in this tutorial. And then also you're going to need to deposit a little bit of base USDC as well, because we're going to build a simple agent that's going to call an x402 resource, and it's going to need USDC to pay for it. So once you've done that, we will need to import some smart contract methods for our x402 gateway to call for payment facilitation. And to do that, come to One Shot prompts and let's filter on the base network, and then we'll just go ahead and search for USDC. We're going to use USDC base. I've also put the link to this direct prompt in the YouTube description. Once you're on this page, click on transfer with authorization and make sure it's the one that uses VR and S as input parameters for the signature. Hit add to my smart contracts and then hit create endpoint. And next, let's also go ahead and import the balance of function as well. That might be useful later. And hit create endpoint. And now if we come over to my smart contracts, you should see USDC base here. And if you expand it, you'll see the two methods that we imported. Now before we leave, come to the API keys tab. And if you don't have an API key yet, hit create a new key, give it a name, and that'll give you a key and a secret. You're going to need those two things as well as the business ID up here in the upper right hand corner to authenticate your N8N workflow against your One Shot API account. And now that we've got that, let's set up our refundable x402 gateway. I'm going to start from scratch here. Click the plus button on your trigger box and search for One Shot. And we're going to use the One Shot API webhook. Make sure that you have version 1.0.33 or later installed for the refund capabilities, and hit add to workflow. Now, first thing you need to do is make sure you have a credential. So click on this box, hit create a new credential, put that API key and secret here, and then don't forget your business ID down here. Then hit save and you will be authenticated. Next, let's flip the webhook type over to x402 payment gateway. We are going to leave the HTTP method to GET for this tutorial. If you're doing something more complicated, you can change that as needed. For the path, let's do x402 refunds example. This can be whatever makes sense for your application, but this is changing the webhook route up here that we're going to be calling from our example agent in a minute. The rest of these quantities here, these are exactly the same things as in a regular N8N webhook endpoint. You can choose when the node responds, what code it responds with, and what kind of data to return based on your resource workflow. Next, let's go ahead and configure our payment token. We're using USDC. The pay to address, this is going to be the resource wallet, and I'm just going to use my personal self-custodied account here. And this is going to be tied to the refund that we're going to see later. And we're going to need to top this up with credits in the x402 refunds service in order for it to do paybacks to buyers who successfully submit a refund request to us. And then for the payment amount, let's just do 1 penny to keep it cheap for this. That's going to be a 1 with 4 zeros, as USDC has 6 decimal places. And finally, to enable the refunds capability, down here in the option section, click Add Option and scroll down and you will see x402 refunds contact email. This is the only thing you need to enter in order for you to receive the refund request messages from the x402 refunds service. So I'm going to put our info email address and I'm going to hit save. And at this point we are ready to serve this x402 resource and potentially process refunds if it makes sense to do so. And be sure to hit publish up here in the upper right hand corner. That will publish the latest version of your x402 resource. Ours is very simple. It has nothing other than payment processing capability, but that's okay, as we just want to see these refunds in action. Now, before I go straight into how an agent would call this and request a refund, you will need to come to x402refunds.com, and there is a top-up button up here in the upper right. If you click that, you can put in your resource pay to address, and this is going to tell you a credit balance. Whatever your credit balance is, that is how much refunds you can process from your buyers. If you have 0, be sure to connect a wallet with USDC in it and pay for refund credits, and at that point you're ready to go with x402 refunds. So now let's come back to N8N and let's try to call this and submit a dispute. So I'm going to open up a new workflow, and our workflow is going to look like this. We're going to have a one-shot API x402 request, and we're going to be requesting that gateway that we just set up. Then we're going to take the information that we got from that and then submit it to the x402 refunds service and ask for our money back. So let's start from scratch. Again, let's search for one-shot API. This time we want the one-shot API node itself, and we want the x402 HTTP request action. Again, make sure you are connected to your one-shot API account with your credential up here. Then select the base server wallet that we provisioned at the beginning of the tutorial. Again, this wallet should have a little bit of USDC in it in order to pay for the resource. We're going to leave the method as get, since we set up our resource as a get endpoint. Now the URL, we need the URL from that gateway, so let's grab it. Paste that endpoint URL here. We don't need to touch authentication, and we're not going to send any body parameters or headers along, but we are going to hit the add option field here, select response, and we want to see the headers that are being returned to us from our refundable endpoint. So I'm going to toggle on include response headers and status, and now if we hit execute, you can see this is the response from our x402 resource endpoint, and if we scroll down here, the headers returned by the refundable endpoint has this link header, and you can see here this is the information that tells the x402 refunds service who to forward disputes to. You don't actually need to deal with this information. This is specifically for the x402 refunds service to read when routing disputes. So now that we've got this, let's now submit this as a dispute. We're going to add a regular HTTP request node, and we're going to be using this information over here to fill this out. So back in the x402 refunds site, if you click on the docs tab and do request funds as a buyer, and then click on the HTTP option. We're going to be submitting the dispute to this URL. So copy that. Let's paste the URL here. And if it copied the post command, make sure to delete that. And then we need to send some body parameters over. So the body parameters that we need are blockchain transaction hash, seller endpoint URL, and description. So we are going to fill in the transaction hash and the seller endpoint URL from the upstream executed node in our agent flow. So let's go ahead and put these into our HTTP body. Okay, so you can see I've entered the body parameters from the example in the x402 refunds documentation, and the transaction hash I've pulled from the upstream response payload. You can see I'm using an expression, and I'm using this transaction hash here for that body parameter. And then for the seller endpoint URL, this is also available from the x402 HTTP request node. If you scroll down, you should see webhook URL here that you can drag into your expression. And then these will be filled in dynamically for you. You don't need to hard code them. Lastly, down here, you need to put a description. Why are you disputing this payment? You're going to want to use an expression here that maybe gets generated by an LLM, something that justifies why you should get your money back for having called this resource. But now we've got it set up. Let's execute this. And you can see we got an OK response, which means our dispute is in the seller's queue. And we should see a x402 refunds email show up in our inbox now. And you'll get an email that looks something like this, and it'll have several deep links for you to click on and approve full refund. This will refund the caller for the full amount minus a fee that x402 refunds takes as part of its business model. Depending on how much it costs, maybe you will approve a partial refund. That could make sense for some applications. And then lastly, if it is a bogus dispute or isn't justified sufficiently, you can reject it outright. All you have to do is click the link, and it will process the refund transaction for you automatically. It's going to deduct the funds from the refund credits that we purchased earlier. And so that's all that it takes to enable refund capabilities now on your x402 resources that you are building an N8 in. Use the one-shot API verified community node, specifically the x402 webhook gateway. Input an email for your business that's running these resources, and then you can ensure better customer satisfaction when people feel safe spending their funds on your resources. So thanks for watching, and watch out for more videos coming from us in the near future.